Now, Daddy's Little Girl is a 2014 revenge horror movie that tells the story of the depths a father is willing to go to for the murder and sexual molestation of his 6-year-old daughter. Now, how far? It's too far. And here are 5 reasons that you should watch Daddy's Little Girl. Coming up on CEDtalks Horror. Now, this movie tells the grim story of Derek Riley, a struggling business owner and father whose daughter goes missing. But once she's found, Derek received tragic news that not only was his daughter a victim of sexual assault, but also the latest child to go missing and be found murdered. Now, after law enforcement moves at a snail's pace to find the culprit, Derek starts to do his own investigation, and that is when he discovers that his brother, Tommy, who is the one behind all of these heinous child kidnappings, rapes, and murders. Now, this movie becomes a race against time for the cops to not only solve the crimes and find this monster, but also to stop Derek from losing all the humanity he has left. Because this movie details Derek's descent into madness as we see him become a first-time father and then suffer the agonizing grief. And finally, we as an audience are taken on a wild ride of vengeance as Derek becomes the judge, jury, and executioner. So, why should you watch this movie? Reason number 1, we feel the full weight of Derek's grief. Now, because Derek punishes his brother for raping and murdering his daughter, the filmmakers do a good job of taking us through this arc of Derek becoming a first-time father, then being a protective dad, and having his whole world turn upside down by having his daughter go missing. Then as that last minute, the last glimmer of hope, she's been found, only to realize that it's just her body that's been found. And we witness him grieve. We also witness him seek justice, and we even witness him place the blame on his ex-wife for not being more attentive. I mean, it's a grim story and it only gets darker. Reason number 2, we become accomplices to murder. Well, sort of. Now, once Derek finds out that it's his brother who kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered his daughter, as well as other small children, we go through this arc where Derek learns and becomes an expert in punishment. I mean, he learns all the ways to torture a person without the risk of killing them. I mean, he seeks answers from the internet, inmates in prison, and even medical doctors. Yet none of these sources are none the wiser. And we go step by step as Derek plans his ultimate revenge. I mean, this movie descends into darkness rapidly. And reason number 3, suffering is worse than death. Yes, now that's a debatable concept, but this movie theorizes that it's true. I mean, for example, Derek slices portion of his brother's body and cauterizes the wounds. He even learns to pull teeth without making the person bleed out. And when he passes out from the pain, he uses techniques to revive him. I mean, believe it or not, this stuff is just the beginning. And reason number 4, this movie makes you question your own morals. I mean, yeah, Derek crosses a line that blurs what is morally right. I mean, sure, he's getting vengeance for his daughter, but there are things that he does to his brother that make you question how far is too far. But I ask you, if your 6-year-old was raped and murdered, does that moral line exist? I mean, it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? And reason number 5, no amount of vengeance can bring peace. I mean, in a movie where a guy tortures the person who rapes and murders his 6-year-old daughter, it would seem that getting vengeance can result in peace. Well, this movie is very explicit in letting us know that that scenario doesn't exist. I mean, yes, you feel the moment of euphoria when administering the pain to that monster that hurt your 6-year-old, but none of that hurt will ever undo the loss you've suffered. We have to realize that this movie was real. Well, sort of. Because Daddy's Little Girl tells the story of a movie about a dad who tortures his brother who rapes and murders his 6-year-old daughter. I mean, this movie is loosely based on a real-life incident. It's the torture, rape, and murder of James Bulger. In the early 90s, there were 2 teenage boys in the UK who kidnapped, sodomized, tortured, and dismembered a toddler. I mean, this movie uses that real-life incident and creates a scenario where the parent dishes out his own brand of vengeance. And this movie is heavy, and it's willing to go far to sell the idea of a place where grief and justice overlaps. Do you think Derek went too far? I mean, the movie poses a question. How far is too far? I mean, if your 6-year-old was raped and murdered, does such a line exist? Does a moral line exist where you would do the unspeakable act to your child's killer? Or do you do the moral thing, the godly thing, and let justice work itself out? So tell us what you would do and how you would handle this monster. Let us know in the comments. Now, our killer of the week comes from 2014's Daddy's Little Girl. Now, essentially, we get a movie where a father grieves his 6-year-old daughter who was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. Now, after investigating, he finds out that it's his own brother who's the culprit. Now, our killer of the week spans in about 3 days in movie time, but over 1 hour in real time. Yes, a kill that is so brutal, it takes about 1 hour to execute. Now, it all starts when Derek roofies his brother Tommy, and Tommy wakes up to a living nightmare. Now, he's bolted by the wrists and ankles to a table that was cut his hand and feet off should he try to move. And he also screws a crown of inverted nails onto Tommy's head. So in case he moves, the nails would impale his brain. But that's exactly the goal, because he cuts him, dig chunks of meat out of his body, breaks bone, cut off fingers and toes, cauterizes his wounds so he can do those things over and over again. He even performs a tracheotomy so he can't scream or talk, beats him with a sledgehammer in a manner that doesn't cause internal bleeding, and he sodomizes him with a jagged PVC pipe. I mean, now, if that isn't enough, he runs the barbed wire up through the PVC pipe, ripping open his anal cavity so he can use that wire to heinously sodomize Tommy till his heart's content. And as the nail in the coffin, he presses the wire so far up Tommy's anus till the barbed wire latch onto Tommy's intestines. And then Derek rips the barbed wire out so that Tommy will bleed out with the maximum amount of pain. I mean, trust me, no matter how much I try to paint this picture of this kill, nothing will beat the experience of seeing it for yourself. And until next time, when SYNOPSIS talks horror.